I mean, I basically have a PhD in overcommitting.
There was a mention of fonts on my Hinge profile.
I'm not crying, you're crying. Welcome to the Yarn Library podcast with me, Adam Cleveley.
And me, Georgia Denham, at Julipearl on Instagram.
And what are we going to talk about this week, Georgia?
Well, we have like two provisional plans here. So either this episode is going to be entitled Travel, or it's going to be entitled Housekeeping, because we've had a couple of episodes out. It's been a while since we have recorded. We managed to record in ahead of time for a couple of weeks. And so this episode is actually going out on Thursday coming. So when you listen to this, it'll be Thursday. But we started writing down a list for housekeeping and then realizing actually there's a lot of things that we want to acknowledge and talk about and things. But actually the original plan was to talk about travel. So that might be next week's episode.
So we don't know. Basically, we're just going to see how long this takes us to dump our brains into microphones. And then you'll either be treated to one episode or two episodes in which we discuss housekeeping and travel.
Yeah, but as ever, it will be tangentially topical. And we'll endeavour to bring, what do we bring?
I don't know.
Academic rigour to your...
You said, what do we bring? And I was thinking, we bring snacks. But I'm looking around the table, you've already eaten your white chocolate. So
I've saved half of it for later.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you saved half it for me. No.
I mean, it's right there. You can have some if you want.
It's all right. It's all right. I keep my chocolate out of sight. There is some in this house. I just hide it from myself.
I have a really lovely memory actually from childhood in terms of keeping chocolate out of sight. Wow, already tangenting. My lovely dad and we had this lovely daddy-daughter tradition where we had a secret Milky Bar that we kept in the top drawer of he had this like tall art tool thing with lots of small drawers, and the top one, the handle had broken off it, and so you couldn't get into it in a normal way. You had to get it open by opening the one below it and then like shimmying out the top drawer. Mm-hmm. So before I was born, my dad smoked a pipe occasionally in this very sort of Sherlock Holmes kind of way. I'm reminded of Nessa and Gavin and Stacey, where she says, I smoked a pipe on Easter. And, and so it was that kind of thing. And he had this really lovely, now I'm not a fan of smoking at all, but there's like a pipe tobacco that my dad would be able to tell me what it is. A really lovely, nice tobacco-y smell.
It's funny, isn't it? That
yeah.
My granddad smoked a pipe as well. In fact, I believe both my grandfathers smoked pipes, but I didn't meet one of them. But he smoked a pipe, and there was that smell of the tobacco, which is sort of very familiar. And it's very different from cigarette smoke or something like that. That's much more acrid. Pipe tobacco can be much sweeter. Anyway, we're not.
Well, yeah, but basically, I have this association between white chocolate, Milky Bar, and really lovely pipe tobacco. And yeah, there's my first tangent of the day. On to housekeeping, Adam.
Look, Georgia and I have sat together for the last 2 hours, so you can believe before
we needed
recording.
A regroup. It's actually the first time we've knit together, and like it was very grounding. It was grounding.
We needed that. We needed a personal catch up as well.
Yeah. Well, the reason that we were kind of inspired to talk about travel was because you just had your retreat. This was my suggestion, because I want the podcast to be somewhere that Adam can talk about his cool retreats, and that's allowed. But we just needed a bit of a catch up because it's been so busy.
Well, the other thing, and I suppose this does even bring us back into housekeeping, the other thing to talk about and acknowledge is that for those of you that are very keenly aware and following on social media, you might have seen that we have done an interview, and we had planned to be bringing that out, but basically, long and the short of it is that's not coming for another month or two at least. And the reason is that firstly, the interview took a long time to do, and so it's quite complicated to work out now how do we downsize that interview into something which you guys all want to really listen to all of.
Because we had like a long chat, it was a 2-hour conversation. Even if we broke it down into two things, it's just that the editing things down and tangents about random stuff. It was our first time doing an interview together, and
it's complicated.
It's complicated.
That was one thing we wanted to pick up on housekeeping. What was the other thing that we wanted to talk about in housekeeping?
There's also been some funny review story situations that have occurred. We're not going to name names, not because anyone is we haven't asked permission if we can share a name, so that's why we're not saying it. We got this email, or rather, the first person to pick it up with was Dima. I think in the middle of writing up, you were busy being Adam. Well, I got a text from Dima being like, right, you got an email, but I responded to it quickly because I just didn't want to leave her suffering. So I'm just very aware that I'm doing a lot of the talking right now. And I want to like make sure that I'm pulling you in, which I'm not doing a very good
job of. And you're just asking me questions that I don't know the answers to. Adam, what were you thinking about? Adam, what was this email that was sent a month ago? These are not thoughts I keep in my head.
So basically, I said something about like exterminator person that we got some like mean review. And then some lovely, gentle, kind person thought, oh my goodness, maybe that was me. I said about it would be nice if they could talk about something else because I can't watch Game of War where I live. She emailed us to say that she went back on iTunes reviews or Apple, it's not iTunes anymore, podcasts. You can tell how much I engage with the modern world. She went back and checked Apple Podcasts and checked her review and thought, well, there's only like 5 or 6 reviews here. And the one that most closely fits the description that Georgia gave. And so this lovely person deduced that it must have been them that we talked about giving a no-star review. This review, in fact, was very, very positive and kind and had only got a drop in of only 4 stars because I just really can't wait until they talk about other things. This led us to discover that actually Apple Podcast reviews are regional. We didn't know that. So this person was in another country. We were seeing the UK reviews, and when she looked for this review to corroborate and think maybe that was me, she didn't see the actual review that I was referring to, and so thought that it was her. And now we found out that there are reviews all around the world that we've not seen. So thank you very much for those. That's a long-winded way of explaining. Thank you for your lovely reviews that we had no idea existed. They're not cumulative. Who knew?
Yep, they're regionally specific, but now we know how to get them all, and we found even more of them.
Yeah, and this poor lady was really worried that she'd offended us, and Dima quickly responded.
I also wrote her a lovely review.
Yes.
I gave her a 5-star review as a podcast listener because she was thoughtful, she wrote well, she was caring and responsive, and so yes, she got 5 stars.
So thank you very much for that. We've also had a lot of lovely emails.
We get messages everywhere. I went through a phase, I was really trying to keep up with the messages on YouTube as well. Hello and thank you if you're watching on YouTube. I don't acknowledge the camera enough when we talk because we imagine this is an audio podcast. I do try to respond to comments on YouTube. I know you do too.
Likewise, yeah.
But it's awesome.
It's lovely, and it's tricky sometimes, especially when I get lovely emails and I'm like, I really want to respond to that. Particularly the last couple of weeks, we've both been really, really busy. So just wanted to acknowledge that.
I will say as well, I mean, personally, it's not connected to the Yarn Library podcast, but I will say in the last week, I've had some shockingly, like, because it just doesn't happen, but I've had, they're not reviews, but like negative comments on Instagram. They happen, normally they're once every few months, but something obviously is, I don't know, the world's obviously in a crap place at the moment anyway, but the comments that I've had, DMs and stuff in the last week have just been not helpful.
Yeah, you sent a screenshot of one to our Rogue Yarn Club, and it was mean and uncalled for and not fair.
Yeah, I think they probably didn't mean that in an unkind way.
Yeah,
but like I'm giving the person the benefit of the doubt there. But I mean, they were out and out telling me that my colour choices were terrible and that I must be colourblind. So
that's the thing, is it's not that deep, like it's not that serious, but it's just like, why would you? But you know, the world is, I don't know, falling apart. So I don't want to overemphasize something that in the grand scheme of things wasn't that awful, but like, why just waste your tippy taps with like saying something like that? I don't know.
It's funny, but there we go. I suppose I view that as a bit of a tax of being on social media that you get that. Yeah, that wasn't the only one, but they happen. But it was weird that last week I seemed to attract an awful lot of that.
There's something that my family, we say when someone makes like a slightly like digging comment, we say, let the stink, because if someone says something weird,
you just let it hang there.
Yeah, that's a bit bigoted. You know, you just sort of let it hang there. And then obviously it's important to call things out for sure, but it does work very well sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think both ways about that, because I think that works as a strategy. But then I've also, like in a workplace, for example, where there's that awkward silence, I also don't believe in doing that because you have a job to police an environment. That's the difficult thing about Instagram. I also don't want to call people out on it directly because I have a relatively large voice on Instagram, and people put far too much weight into that. which I don't like.
I think that's one of the reasons that we aren't so keen to say names of people, because sometimes
It can get misconstrued, and I don't want people jumping on a bandwagon and causing...
Yeah, no, that's not our vibe. There was something years ago when I moved to my college here in Cambridge. I remember reading all of like the statutes of the college, and like not many people actually like sit down and read all of these like old random rules.
But Georgia does.
Yeah, I did. I was very excited to be here, okay? And one of the things it said about my college was like, don't be about people. I think it says don't speak poorly of someone in your college. The thing is, people do that all the time, but I always have it in the back of my mind that actually the rules do say...
Only do it to their face, or talk about people behind their backs if they're from another college.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's something. It was college specific.
That's a guiding principle. Like, don't be mean about any of us. Be mean about everyone else in the world.
I'm worried now I'm going to like misquote this and then make Cambridge look terrible. But it's a sense of like fostering community and also like free speech and debate and talking to people openly. I mean, it wasn't just 4 years ago that I heard like, no, you shouldn't talk about people horribly. My mum used to talk about when I was a child that your mind is like a garden, and when you do nice things, like flowers grow, and when you do like crappy things, then weeds grow and like the flowers die, which is maybe a bit dark, but it's nice to do nice things.
Nice to do nice things.
Like inviting Adam to knitting groups and knitting picnics.
That's a great callback.
Yeah.
Have you had any like negative comments on your, because you're big enough now on Instagram, you've got like 60,000 followers. I would imagine that's certainly at the point where I was starting to attract negativity.
I had some fairly early on because of a video we put out about Damien Hirst. It was a clip from
I remember you talking about that. Yeah.
That was tricky because it was early on in my editing journey, and in the way that I'd talked about it and edited it, I hadn't acknowledged like a long tradition and history of assistants and apprentices within fine art practice, and like that's a historic thing. It's not new to Damien Hirst. That wasn't what I was criticizing.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. It was about how artists work and that they've got ways of making their practice more efficient overall. As in the workshop practice they go through.
And people have been doing that for a long time, and I got a lot of comments with people telling me that I was in different shapes and forms like ignorant or just didn't know about it. And I thought the best way was to pin a very long comment with lots of sources acknowledging what they said, but saying, actually, I should have used this example. I think it kind of did, actually, because I was able to, all those comments just go, some of them were nice. They weren't all horrible. There was one that was a bit sharp, but in the grand scheme of things, it really is okay. And people have generally been very nice. Though, so... like you said with your comment earlier, it wasn't meant to be mean and it wasn't meant to be unkind. It was genuinely meant in a supportive capacity. Mm-hmm. I always love hearing from people and hearing their thoughts on things. And yeah, feedback is useful. We both encourage feedback.
I love this prelude that you're given. I can hear this is your brain is ticking away, trying to be like, I've got something really crappy to say. I need to introduce it in the nicest, gentlest possible way. Georgia, spit it out.
I want my mind garden to be pretty. So someone got in touch via my DMs on Instagram, and they said that I needed to stop talking about my PhD so much.
Right.
Or mentioning it. Again, I acknowledge she did say, I'm neurodivergent. I'm probably being very blunt. I want to see the podcast succeed, but it's bound to be putting people off. And I just want you to stop doing it so you can stop putting people off if they've not been put off already. And I was a bit like, okay. How do I take this? On the one level, want to take this as constructively as possible. And so I know this person listens, and I don't want this to come across as any way like as attacking or anything like that. It's not about that. But it did bring up some interesting thoughts for me because we live in Cambridge, right? Mm-hmm. It's just very naturally like a very academic city in lots of ways.
Yep.
We're around a lot of people doing PhDs. And when I say, oh, there was something I was working on for my PhD, I see that as a contextual cue, not as any kind of, oh, I need to remind people I'm doing a PhD.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is a very, very, I say Cambridge thing, but it's the same in Oxford and any other university town. In a way, saying your PhD is like saying, I was at work the other day, and like that's literally what you're doing, is you're saying, I was at work the other day, and the difficulty is that in non-university environments, signaling PhD does signal it does mean a different thing. It doesn't mean when I was doing my day job the other day.
Yeah.
It means something else. I mean, that is right at the heart of what I find difficult about like the random comments from time to time. And it's absolutely no one's fault, because people do talk and say things in a different way. No one has got an idea whether the one thing that they say actually is striking a really deep chord with you, because it's much more deep in your personality about, is this something which is part of your identity rather than something which is a superficial comment. For example, last week, one of the things that I at the retreat, we went and got a bunch of snacks for people, because it came up in conversation. We had international visitors for the retreat, and we were talking about British snacks. A whole load of the British snacks were not known, and so I went...
Outrageous.
Exactly. Like, well, this is supposed to be an educational retreat. I'm going to go to the supermarket and get British snacks. And I posted about it on Instagram, and it was on stories briefly, but yeah, I got a couple of messages of, I don't know, there's borderline hate back, basically criticising me for engaging with snack culture at all. And
Snacks
kind of
are friends.
Careful what you say. One of them was like a fat shaming comment as well, which is like, I know that the comment wasn't necessarily meant in an aggressive or mean way, but because I've got a long history of being overweight, it's like it hits something much more deep and personal than I think necessarily the person intends. Same thing with your PhD comment, because it does form part of your identity, certainly at the moment, that it makes you think more.
Well, it was funny actually, because the things that they were saying in this message, and I responded, and we had a back and forth a little bit. Again, I could tell in her messages very supportively, and in subsequent episodes and things, she said, oh, this episode was great, and it's been very positive. I should say also, this person herself has a PhD. One of the things she kept coming back round to is saying, well, it's coming across that you're insecure, and that when you get more experience in this, you won't feel a need to qualify what you're saying with telling everyone that you're doing a PhD. Like you're saying, that there are some things, right, that if people said them to me, they would really cut me and hurt me. I'm pretty objectively secure, and I'm a PhD student. And there were times when I wasn't so secure in being in Cambridge, and I wasn't from a kind of community that did that kind of thing. And I don't feel that way anymore, because I've done a lot of work on it. And so I kind of knew that my motivation was never feeling that I needed to qualify my position. It was really recognizing, there is a contextual cue here. But the biggest thing was thinking, I don't want people to get the wrong impression or feel that it's alienating or annoying, or that I'm trying to one-up people. Like, one of the things that the person suggested was that I referred to things differently. Like, I could say, I was doing some reading on, or in my research on, or whatever else. And she did acknowledge it might just be a cultural difference, I don't know. But those different phrases in a Cambridge context would come across much more pompously, probably just because Cambridge has really tried to move away from people saying like, oh, I'm reading such and such. And it just comes across differently in this cultural context. And I recognize that that's not the same for everyone else. And so in a way, I wanted to mention it here, because if you have ever felt like, oh, Georgia's mentioning her PhD or mentioning Cambridge or whatever else, I also know that me talking about it in detail could also indicate that, well, she's clearly insecure about it. But I think it hopefully can communicate more that I'm very neurodivergent and think about things in all kinds of layers and directions, regardless of how I actually emotionally feel about it. And really wanted to just acknowledge for people that that's not my intention.
So just to be clear, on the 10-minute side note about specifically your PhD, that isn't a thing.
Like, there are lots of other insecurities I have, but that it's just objectively true. I know I'm a PhD student. That's a true fact.
It's funny. I went to Oxford University, or University of Oxford. I don't talk about it enough, Georgia. But like, it's one of those things that when you're there, you think that it is the be all and end all of of everything. And literally, like, once I was out of it, maybe it was the career and jobs that I went into, but I literally never mentioned it again. Like, I left and I was never a thing. And it's like, it comes up maybe once every couple of years as something that I bring up. But actually, I have always found that talking about it in the areas in which I have worked, it serves as way more of a barrier to talking to people. Like, I actively ignore it and try and cover it up. I'll talk about having done an engineering degree or engineering economics and management degree. Like, I'll push it as the side.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about all of the other features of it to avoid talking about the university, because more often than not, it is a barrier. But
yeah, part of it is almost a corrective thing, though, because I want to acknowledge in that being at Oxford or Cambridge is like, there's so much privilege wrapped up in that in that sense, I'm cautious to call it like a barrier, though I know what you mean. Like, I do know what you mean, because sometimes people are a bit fishy about like, oh, they're at Cambridge. The other thing is, though, that you said about it being like in it, you thought it was a be all and end all. I'm very aware that like there is life outside, but when you're writing up, I'm sorry if I mentioned my PhD a bit, because I'm in it. I'm in it like
60 hours a week.
Yes, I'm so in it all the time. And then, the other thing is, I'm doing a podcast that's basically on my PhD research.
Yeah.
So it's going to come up, and I'm sorry about that.
Is your PhD research on the same topics that we cover in this podcast? If looks could kill, I would be dead 6 times over.
Well,
ouch, that hurt. I'm only pulling your leg, Georgia.
No, it's just because I took you literally and then realised that you were taking the mick. Anyway.
I could need a 10-minute sit down after that. The other thing that I'd like to bring up in terms of like housekeeping, I remember being coached by this amazing woman. I've used her to coach a number of teams that I've worked with in a number of different businesses. She's absolutely amazing. But one of the things that she's really amazing at, one of the many things, is that when she sits down with a group at the beginning of the day to do whatever you're focusing on in terms of team understanding, she sits down and she says, "How is everyone?" And obviously everyone just sort of grunts and gives that very quick response of like, "I'm fine," or whatever. And then she says, "I'm not going to take that, because that's not true, and it's not why we're here." And then she says, "I've had a bit of a disrupted morning because this happened, and so I'm feeling a little bit," paraphrasing at this point, "I'm feeling a little bit triggered because of that, and I'm trying to resettle myself now because blah, blah, blah." And then she forces you to go around the room and have that, like, because she wants everyone to be on the same page, like, where's everyone's energy levels at? Just like, not because there's anything wrong with coming into the room, feeling annoyed, feeling whatever, but like just to acknowledge where everyone's at. I was going to try and do that because I was coming into this podcast quite low energy, in quite a difficult place. I'm very, very emotionally run down over the last like few weeks. And so that's where I wanted to sort of base our housekeeping, like to ground both of us.
But then we already had like our own personal grounding that I think has pepped us up a little bit. Is that the kind of point you're making? And you don't know what the point is you're making, because I interrupted you again. Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I guess that's partly it. But I also wanted to sort of in the housekeeping acknowledge like where we're at in terms of recording the podcast and the frequency and so on of it. So in terms of like things we've been up to recently.
A friend of mine is a really, really lovely, amazing organist, as well as being a PhD student, actually, in classics. She's been organising this really lovely project for people who kind of in a similar situation to me, maybe have done a lot of singing in the past, haven't really done it recently. And it's a very low commitment, but really nice bunch of people. And we're singing the Messiah and we've been rehearsing that. And it's literally the first time that I've like sung in 5 years.
Are you
probably.
in the choir or are you one of the soloists?
I'm just doing the choir. I said I don't want to do solo. I just want to go and like see if I can still cope with being in a choir, and I'm really enjoying it. And it's actually teaching me to like actually enjoy something again like that, which is lovely. It's happening in my college chapel, which is where I got married. So I know it really well. It's a beautiful space for me. Very, very like heartwarming. Like weird things happen in that church that make me go, oh, I'm kind of going on the right track here. And on Saturday, the first person ever who's come up to me to say, oh, are you Georgia Denham? I know you from your podcast, was someone who was in that choir who I didn't know, but was like mutual friends of friends. And they came up to me and were like, yeah, I listened to your podcast. And I said, I'd give her a shout out. It's Kitty, also a PhD student.
At Cambridge.
Yeah. Very, very cool stuff, actually. And we had a lovely conversation on the break. And she walked up to me in like basically exactly the spot where I got married. And I was just like, I think I'm doing the right thing. Like, this is, I feel like I'm on the right path. This is nice. So yeah, it was a very lovely, lovely, heartwarming thing.
I find it so bizarre to be recognised in different places because, and broadly, I am never recognised outside of craft environments. I think I've been stopped once in the supermarket. I was in Sainsbury's and that was it. Like, and someone recognised the scarf that I was wearing. You're wearing that scarf. You must be Adam. But obviously, you go to a craft place, you go to a yarn fair or something. I am widely recognised. Yeah, but yeah, otherwise I travel around completely incognito. It's really bizarre because I don't like no one else around me. My children don't understand what the difference is, and also they see like big numbers on Instagram. They think that means an automatic level of fame. But really, like in the grand scheme of the world, it's nothing. It's like niche in terms of numbers.
It's a fun niche, though. Fun.
It is a fun niche.
I'm happy to be in this niche.
I think I wonder if we're going to get through a whole episode without talking about knitting, Georgia.
This feels so egotistical just to have this just on this. My supervisor, who's like, oh God, I'm talking about my PhD again, aren't I? My lovely supervisor spoke last week about how he was recently asked to write a piece for a journal. It was like a first issue of the journal, and they asked him to do like he described it as like a memoir style, like talking through his life, and how he got to the place that he is as this like really great interdisciplinary human computer interaction researcher. And he said he just feels uncomfortable about it because it's like not a scientific paper, and he was like, I just feel like it's really self-indulgent. And I'm feeling a lot of that right now, that I feel like we should be talking about hard-hitting content about important things such as traveling with knitting and your yarn retreat
and my yarn retreat.
That was the big motivation for talking about travel. Let's talk about your yarn retreat, and then that's an episode.
You want to talk about my yarn retreat now, and then we'll lock off this as an episode.
And then talk about travel.
And then we'll talk about travel in the next one. So this is going to be like the introduction to the next episode.
Yeah. I think that could work.
Well done for any listeners that have made it this far through the episode. Oh my
God, I hate this. We're trying new things, okay? This is the experimental season.
And I just want to make sure, in case Georgia has cut it out, but in case you weren't aware, Georgia has done a PhD.
I'm not insecure. I'm very confident. Thank you for acknowledging.
I'm also going to get a little sign that I can hold up that says joke. Maybe on the other side it says PhD question mark.
That would be a really lovely, reasonable adjustment for this neurodivergent friendly space. Thank you.
I feel like it is important. I'm going to do it. I'm going to tell you about my yarn retreat. Before we go any further, I'm going to stop tangenting. Okay. So the yarn retreat, it was amazing. So I've always wanted, I haven't even been knitting that long. I've wanted for a long time to create a space for yarn retreats that I would want to be on.
Can confirm you have been talking about this for a long time.
Because I think it's like I love meeting people in the knitting community. I love the fact that basically when you meet people in the knitting community, there is something and crochet and
shame
and macrame and sewing, whatever else you want to throw in there.
Textiles, crafts.
There is a vibe that is just generally lovely, and I really I celebrate the fact that basically I now feel very confident. I absolutely wouldn't have 2 or 3 years ago, but I would feel very confident. If I'm alone traveling in a city somewhere, I would now feel very happy Googling and looking on Meetup or whatever, like finding a local craft knit night or something in a pub and just rocking up. I know how open those spaces are, and that they're familiar enough to me that I understand what they are, why they exist, and the kinds of people that generally go. But I also want to, it's never enough. Like spending a couple of hours with people is lovely, but it's not as much as like going away and really having time to focus on your project or knitting or what you want to do, and being able to do that with similar like-minded people. So I really wanted to create that. And I know that they exist already, and I've been invited to teach on, I was going to say loads of other, several, quite a few other people's retreats or holidays. But when I've got into the details of it, for one reason or another, it's not been either financially worth my while, because you end up taking a huge amount out of your time. Like, it's fine if you're regarding it, if I were regarding it as a holiday, that's one thing, but I don't go on that to have the holiday for myself. I want to create the experience. I want to create the experience for someone else. In which case, like, own the whole project. And that was so exciting to set that up with Louise, my partner in crime there, maker on the move, that we've created this kind of experience. And it was wonderful, but my goodness, it was stressful. It was like just the anxiety, because I love having friends for dinner parties or house parties or whatever. Like, I love that thing, but then it also doesn't mean that I don't get stressed out by making sure that everyone's having a good time. And I want to, like, I feel other people's emotions acutely, and I want to make sure that everyone is getting out of it what they want and need to. And obviously, it being the first one that we've done, that was just full of stress and just really trying to keep on top of stuff. And of course, you're learning so much. There's so much. You can go on a retreat and you won't understand the things that if you run a retreat that you learn. And so like the rate of learning's always exhausting. And it's like remembering all of the things you want to change for next time. Not that there was anything wrong with it, but like just how we structure the days and program the days, and also giving ourselves downtime. There was one mistake. We talked about mistakes the other week, didn't we? One massive mistake that Louise and I made is that we created this schedule where we were basically with everyone the whole time. So I was, from roughly 8 o'clock in the morning, when I was at breakfast with everyone, I didn't get more than like literally a few minutes to myself until 10 o'clock in the evening. And that was something which, you know, in terms of like Louise and I having time to catch up and talk about like what's going well, what's not going well, who do we need to look after, are there any extra support we need to put in place or so on. Like, we just didn't have time for that. And that made it kind of super exhausting, but 100% worthwhile, and 100% like, I cannot wait to do the next ones. Though there were times where I was like looking at myself in the mirror thinking, what on earth have you got yourself into, Adam? But like, it's because it's something I care about, and I care about so passionately. Like, that makes it worthwhile in itself.
Yeah,
because you just get into the joy of doing something that you care about is such a nice thing.
I've really seen how this has kind of opened out over time for you, and how much you've been behind it, going from like the early conversations we had about like, oh yeah, it would be really nice to get and like a retreat together. And in a way, it sort of inspired our own like Rogue Yarn Club. Oh yeah, should we do our own little retreat? That would be really fun. So going from there to actually seeing you do it, it's very cool. It's very cool to like see something like hustling to the point of like fruition, and it's like a legit thing. And I was seeing all these reels and posts and stuff, and like that one of all the yarn laid out. That was scrummy. I
know for anyone that runs a yarn shop, that won't have been a big yarn delivery, because it was 120 skeins or something of yarn. But
I was like showing it to Dima. I was like, do you know how much yarn this is? This is insane. It was very cool. And I know how much attention you put into those kinds of things. I don't tend to say that I'm proud of people, because I was raised with this idea that like you can take pride in yourself, but my dad didn't say he's proud of me because he thought that it wasn't his place to, because it was my own achievement. So I don't tend to say I'm proud of you, Adam, but the version of that I do say is like, I'm really happy for you, and it's a lovely thing to witness you achieve and accomplish this thing, because it's very cool.
Thank you. Well, you say accomplish, and I immediately want to excuse it and say, well, it's not accomplished yet because we haven't finished with this retreat in terms of like, there is still wrapping up to do. There's still all the accounting to do for it. There's still the stuff that we're sending up both virtually and physically. We've got plans for people. Like there is still so much to do.
Yeah.
And excitingly, like we want to launch. The plan is to launch 3 more retreats within the next 2 weeks. So
that's fancy.
I mean, I basically have a PhD in overcommitting.
Yeah, by special regulation. That's what it is. It's PhD by special regulation. We just get you through some kind of committee.
Who can just award me that? One of the bits of feedback was that like a lot of people wrote in and said, because we did this at very short notice, like Louise and I were having the conversation for a bit, and I very much said, let's just do this. And that was okay, well, we're going to do it. What's the date? Let's lock it in. Let's do it. And like, because that's the thing, because you can talk about these things forever, and you say it's been in conversation for a while. Anything that's in conversation for a while with me either has to happen or it's not going to happen. And like, we'll get off the pot. Sorry, we're going through all the bars very quickly.
I've never heard that phrase.
Oh, it's a brilliant one, isn't it? We'll get off the pot.
It's good. I love that.
I'm sorry. I don't know how you're going to include
practical applications as well. If like someone's in the loo too long.
So for anyone that's then not familiar, I mean,
wait, what does it mean?
Well, poo or get off the toilet. That's the.
Well, yeah. So that's what I thought. Yeah.
Because you're occupying the space and time. Like a thought is occupying space in your brain, like or that you are occupying a space for someone else. Like get out of the way and let someone else get on with with what their business is. So yeah, no, that was very much it. So it crystallized. But a lot of people said like, if this was booked longer in advance, I'd love to come because they're organising international travel, all the rest of it. Totally fair enough.
I think I've learned a lot from you in being in your proximal area of just doing things. I saw something the other day. Oh gosh, it was like ADHD is having enough ideas to build an empire, but getting stuck on choosing the font.
Oh my God, it's such a thing. Absolutely. Like it's so easy to do. And also, yeah, that there are 1,000 ideas to test and to do.
Yeah.
But I also like my corporate background, my experience is you have to test something, and testing something that's 80 or 90% of the way there is what you have to do. And I mean, broadly, I get fed up of conversations that go on too long about, oh, I could do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Like, are you actually, or are you not? Because if you're not, just stop talking about it. I don't want to hear about it anymore.
Having conversation with you, even as a friend, is really, I enjoy the structure of it sometimes where like we'll just have a nice, fun, like free, easy conversation. I'm not saying that you're like businessy, like when we have conversations, but like earlier we were having a chat, we were trying to decide what we were going to talk about and what the plan of action was. And then you really well like wrapped up the thing. And I suppose it comes with experience of being able to say, okay, 2 questions for you, and right, so this is what we're doing. Right, let's like crack on. And it wasn't passive aggressive, it wasn't mean. Anyway, that's just like how you are in terms of that movement forward trajectory. And I've really learnt so much from that. I mean, it's even just this podcast. I mean, you were like, shall we record a podcast on Monday? And I'm like, okay, yes, please. And I mean, going back to the empire and font thing, I mean, Yarn Library I'd still be choosing the font if Adam hadn't just asked me to do it. So, in fact, I've spent a shocking amount of time choosing fonts for Yarn Library.
So if you've got any comments or questions on fonts specifically, then Georgia sounds like she needs to be bombarded with that.
To be fair, though, there was a mention of fonts on my Hinge profile when I met Dima.
There we go.
And also postal stamps.
Well,
I embraced all of the nerdy cliches.
I'm very, very happy for the two of you.
We found each other.
Through fonts.
This is my favourite one that I just have to share with the room. So on this dating app, you scroll and you see, it gives you different prompts. And you could put like a picture in response or some text. And the prompt was, my love language is, and he wrote Aldi knockoff brands. So good.
Amazing.
Yeah. So that's how I found my man.
What else do you want to know about Yarn Retreat? What else can I tell you about?
I wondered about like how many people did you name tags? How did you remember people's names?
We did do name tags. So we had wooden name tags that were laser etched with everyone's names.
Oh.
That was fancy. Then we also did an exercise, which again, it's a creative step that I wasn't really thinking about. The first thing I did there, well, the sort of taught class was on I-cord. So it was about having an I-cord cast on, using an I-cord cast on, I-cord embedded I-cord edges, and then an I-cord cast off. Mm-hmm. And then also I was doing it with different colours, the colour change, and showing how to vary tension with an I-cords. Anyway.
I don't want you to give it all away, but what you're describing there feels like a mix of skill stuff. But then I also saw something about you also looking at some patterns or doing small squares or something. I don't know. What was the structure? Like, what were you teaching and doing? And I know that also Louise was doing crochet things. So how does that work?
Well, so that was a class, but that made a beautiful rectangle in pairs of colours. And so what people did, which was really beautiful, is they pinned their name badges through that. So that became like beautiful knitted name badges. So absolutely, that's the thing. Like, that's a nice thing for learning on future ones is making sure that everyone knits their own, crochets their own name badges.
It's like a personality.
So that was one thing, but that was also the reason that was an important class for this one, is because everyone on the retreat got a pre-release of the pattern. Never doing that again in my life. That was an absolute, like, in terms of stress, that was such a mistake. We thought it'd be a really cool thing to do a pattern release basically around the retreat. In terms of the stress of the actual moment of a pattern launch, it is way too much. Absolutely do one on a retreat, but the pattern release still isn't for another week or two afterwards. Like, they need to be separated. That was too much. So after the final dinner, as an example, Louise and I were up for another 2.5 hours, making sure that everything was in shape, in place. So it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning doing that stuff after the dinner where, we've been entertaining everyone at the end of a long day. So that was a big mistake from us from an emotional point of view. But the reason the class and the pattern went together is because the class on I-cords directly led into the structure that's in the pattern. And so you could do the class and then understand some extra bits about the pattern, which you wouldn't understand necessarily if you just buy the pattern, or getting some niche tips and techniques. That was part of it. One person felt that they had truly mastered I-cords. You're going to get that with mixed ability knitters, and they stepped out and they took a one-on-one crochet class at that point. And there were other times as well during the retreat where people stepped away just to go and, like, we really lucked out with the weather and people sat outside and knitted. But then I also did some bespoke teaching. So, like, asked around the room what people were particularly interested in. And there was, like, I did some like one-on-one, two-on-one, how you knit cables, as well as a bigger talk class on wrapping stitches and so on. It was a whole mixture of stuff. And that kind of teaching people what they wanted, how and when they wanted to do it. And I had a stranded knitting on the go. So there was a bit of class on that, teaching that. It was, that's what I love about doing relatively small groups, is that you can help people based on individual needs as well, and give people bespoke tips. There was so much good that came from that. Such a lovely vibe there, and such a wonderful group of women that came. But the one person that went away for me, that was like, she said something which was so special for me, was how her confidence had changed as a knitter as a result of being away, because she felt that the way in which I had taught was so empowering in terms of being able to get past mistakes, or being able to, like, not stress about some of the details. And honestly, that mattered to me so much, because I know that I do that, and I know that I talk about mistakes, and I do get the feedback that people say it's nice to hear you talk about mistakes and acknowledging them, because, like, knowing that not everything has to be perfect, but seeing that transformative step in someone and them acknowledging it for themselves, about, like, I can see where I was getting hung up on that, and then finding something within themselves about how they don't need that part of themselves, that, you know, that they can find a way around that. That was very special.
And for visual description, we are both teary-eyed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can completely see that. I think having these conversations with you on the podcast and off the podcast, that's something that's so important to both of us. Not to project myself into the retreat thing, because I think that's very much your and Louisa's thing. But I know the conversations we've had that, well, you know, if you're listening to this and you've listened to our other episodes, you know how we've talked about learning and skill and confidence and what it means to someone. That's why I'm getting emotional as well, is because it taps into so much that I know that we've talked about on the podcast, and how many people have commented, shared. I mean, it goes back to the housekeeping at the beginning. Like, how many people have said, I'm going to go to a knitting group, and I've never been confident enough to do that before. And I've started a new project, or I'm going to try mosaic knitting. And I'm getting goosebumps now, because that is just amazing. Like, really, really amazing.
There were so many times, and I said it whilst we were there, I think everyone thought I was joking when I said, you've just given me goosebumps. Because I don't think they think it's real, but it's
we love knitting so much.
So real. Like, it matters to me so much on such a deep level that people can feel a transformation, because I know that it goes further than knitting. It isn't just when someone achieves something in knitting, you're not just unlocking. I'm not crying, you're crying. It goes much further than that, because you know that when you're giving someone that air of confidence or that little bit of extra ability, I know that it supports someone in the rest of their life too. And ultimately that matters so much to me. I like, because I felt that as well. It's not just extrapolation, because I've seen it and I've seen where it matters. I see it in the charity work that I do. I see it in all sorts of groups and environments that I go into. But the different thing about the knitting retreat for me, because it was an extended period of time with the same group of people and working with that group, there is so much more emotional support and connection that you're creating. I feel like, I mean, maybe it's just like the same thing as going to a knitting group 20 times in a row, because that's the amount of time that you're spending, you know, condensed into a few days.
Yeah.
I posted about it because it was very real for me. But like, the last person literally walked out the room, and I turned around, and I was obviously exhausted. As I said, like, we'd done a pattern release, so I was up at, you know, till I didn't get to sleep till 2 a.m, and then I was up at, I don't know, 5:30, 6 to get ready for everything. Then, you know, everyone left at sort of about 12:30 was the last people out the door. And I turned around, and there was an envelope on my desk, and it just said Adam and Louise on it. Now, the first thought that went through my mind was, I wonder if this is a complaint. Like, genuinely, that's the sort of vulnerable space that I was in.
I feel that way when I get voice notes from you.
Ouch. Adam dies for a second time. Oh my God.
Sorry, that was mean.
What have I done to do that?
No, it's more of the trauma, don't worry. Sorry, carry on.
So I
spilled a beautiful moment. That was terrible. I just couldn't resist.
It's fair enough.
No, it's not. It's not you. It's not you.
No, we're gonna award you an honorary PhD.
I had a really, really scary boss. Okay, right, carry on.
And so I opened this envelope, and it was just as I picked it up, Louise called me, and in terms of like more emotion on the scene, so obviously not scheduled, but Louise had to attend a funeral, and so she had to miss the last couple of hours, and she happened to just call me because she was between funeral and wake at that moment, and she said, how's it going, is everyone gone? And I said, well, you know, I explained, and I said, well, I've just got this envelope in front of me, do you want me to open it and read it? And so I opened it and I read it out, and it was obviously, it wasn't obvious to me until I read it, but I was reading it out to Louise, and it was this just very heartfelt thanks of a thank you card. And I was so overwhelmed, and I just cried, because it was so, like, it was such a relief as well that, I mean, there's so much that goes into that. I mean, someone's got to have the thought that I'm going to write a thank you card, and like, what a kind and lovely thing to do anyway. Yeah. And that's such a lovely thing to do. on top of then the emotional relief of like, I don't know, I do trust everyone, but then there's always that 1% of doubt. Like I was saying, like this was the person who loved being there, and I was still thinking, oh, it could be a formal complaint that someone's left on my desk.
Yeah.
Like where was, like, I don't know where that could have come from. Like we catered for everyone's needs, but I guess it's that that constant anxiety of like fundamentally, I just think that I must have done something wrong somewhere. But yeah, it floored me. But I think it was it was a very particular moment, and it was also that I was having to read it out loud to Louise on the phone. And then that was
in a way, I feel like this episode has become a kind of a homage to our lovely listeners and our community and the people who are in some way connected to us that maybe weren't connected with us at the start of us doing this. There's something about hearing people's stories and seeing their progression that you described and getting those lovely cards and lovely messages. Like when people share something really personal, maybe it's a story about their grandmother or their mum or how they learned as a child, and that they felt like, oh, thank you so much for talking about that because it's made me realize XYZ thing. And recently I've been getting like super emotional about, like, not all the time, but super emotional sometimes when I've been doing reading for my PhD on like different craft things. And genuinely, I've been so like overcome with emotion sometimes that I've been like, am I pregnant? And I'm not. But like, I feel like I have to put that as a disclaimer, because if any woman says that she's feeling emotional about stuff irrationally, then people could be like, are you pregnant? Anyway.
Also, can I just say, not that you have to tell anyone.
Thank you. Exactly. But it's just, unfortunately, I feel like if I told this story, then like, or just even told it to friends or someone, they'd be like, oh, you're pregnant. Like I get that stuff all the time.
I know it's a period of life that you're in, and I know that it is suffocating.
Yeah. But the point of this is I've been getting like weirdly emotional recently. And I've assumed it's just because I'm tired or because I'm really passionate about what I'm researching. But sometimes I'll read something. So one of them was a book called, it's a passage from Amateur Craft. I think it's called Amateur Craft by Stephen Knott. And it was actually his PhD thesis that was then turned into a book by Bloomsbury Visual Arts. And it was a beautiful section on paint by numbers. And it was just so lovely and so heartwarming, and talked about how people hadn't really respected it as a thing, and then the people who had, and like the first exhibition of paint by numbers, and about paint by numbers as a means to make art more accessible for people and people wanting to pursue it. All these things. I was weeping. It was so beautifully written and so powerful that I was feeling and seeing the emotion and the people who were implicated by these ideas, and or the people that were impacted by these ideas. And I was in bits. And then a couple of days ago, I was reading some bits of William Morris. And oh my gosh, like, I mean, he just wrote about things. There's a beautiful thing that one of his biographers said in like the 70s that was something along the lines of, he wrote about things in such a way that we would know how he felt about them now if he were alive today, because he wrote almost in a time traveling way. I mean, literally sometimes in time traveling way. And there were a few little bits. Maybe I have actually been thinking about making like an Instagram post of like my favorite William Morris things I've come across recently. There is one about like science and pollution. And there was another one that really got me that was from like 1890 something or 1885, where he talked about how museums were actually really violent, brutal places, or that he could go around a museum and that because of like colonial theft and taking things from different places.
Right, yeah.
And he wrote about that like 120, 130 years ago.
Gosh.
And he wrote this. It's only passing, but it's in the lesser arts. There's two different names for different things. One is a speech, one is the essay, and it's one of those where he says, "Where's the effect of like museums are great, but going around them there's a kind of a melancholy hanging over the place." And then he kind of said that actually, if we look more locally and look to great cathedrals and to arts within our own nation, and maybe we can dive deeper into those things rather than going into museums all the time to look at these things that we've taken from other places.
Yeah, I suppose it's the type of museum that exists. And when you look at something like, you're looking at national museums like the British Museum or Smithsonian or the Met in the US, very big collections of international stuff.
Yeah, I had a friend who was doing sorry?
Well, I was just going to say, what an interesting insight to have had in the 19th century, though, because that's
when it was currently happening.
Because it was very much still part and parcel of certainly what the British were doing at that point, but also, that was very much how the world existed, and to have understood or to have the foresight, I suppose, because it is a cultural foresight at that point.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It was a topical, timely commentary on things that were currently happening, but it's something that we associate more with like, oh, people are talking now about repatriating things. I was in the V&A the other day, or actually the V&A East, the storehouse, and they have a lot of really amazing decolonizing museum practices. There's a book club that the staff at V&A can go to. There was something mentioned, I think I've heard of it before, but there's actually like a legal law thing, an act from like the 70s, I think. I'd have to look it up, that actually prevents museums in the UK from repatriating things. Like it's legally blocked. Which is interesting. They described actively working with different communities around the world to arrange loans because they're actually legally blocked from giving those things back.
Well, that's just creates
Can of worms.
That's the barrier that people can then hide behind and say, oh, look, there's a law that stops me doing that. Well, that law was made by people. Laws can also be made to undo other laws. So.
Exactly. When the V&A was saying it in the exhibition, and they were actively trying to say, look, we are trying to figure out ways around this, and we don't want this to be the case, but we are legally prevented from doing this. It was just said in passing in one of the paragraphs, and I went, oh, that's interesting. So yeah, I want to defend the V&A there a little bit. Yeah. Wow. That was a tangentful, joyous episode.
So we get the comment from time to time that people wish that they could hear more of our tangents and go off on one. I wonder what feedback we're going to get this time, Georgia.
Yeah,
I feel like we have managed to fill... Oh my goodness, we've definitely filled an episode worth of tangents.
The irony that we're probably going to get loads of savage comments going, I didn't enjoy this one. This was a bit too egotistical for me. You talked about yourselves too much. Where's the literature?
It's funny. I think your audience and my audience are different as well, because the comments that we get is different.
That's true.
You've got a more academic audience.
That is true. I need to talk to you about that, actually.
We don't have time for that. I'm going to wrap up this episode, Georgia. I'm going to say that's all we've got time for on Yarn Library Podcast. You've been listening to me, Adam Cleveley.
And me, Georgia Denham at Tulip Hill. Oh, I was going to do an accent, wasn't I, next time?
Oh, you were. Where's the Dutch accent gone? Go and say goodbye.
No, I can't do it under pressure. Like, I might mess it up. No, you already had a bit of a Welsh accent earlier. That's what you get.
I did.
No,
we did.
Nessa.
It was lovely. And,
Thank you.
It was interesting to know
Georgia
about
Denham. No, that was appalling. That's not going in. Goodbye. You've been listening to Yarn Library Podcast with Adam Cleveley at Cleveley Knits and me, Georgia Denham at Tulip Hill. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, share and subscribe. And if you didn't, shh.